All right, moving on now to our next big story. The power situation in the country is still in very pitiable state. Now, this situation has led to the death of many small businesses that could not sustain production requirements like electricity.
But Nigeria's power problem cannot be blamed on a single arm of electricity, but the entire value chain of generation, transmission, and even distribution. Now, the Transmission Company of Nigeria has been accused of topping the list of abandoned infrastructure projects in the country.
Now, these projects, if completed, would have ensured an expansion of the country's transmission network. According to the interim managing director of the TCN, Usman Mohammed, now these abandoned TCN projects are scattered all across the country. He blames the situation on contractors who take on these jobs without the required capacity.
Mohammed says despite the budgets provided for the projects, they fail to implement because politicians meddle by suggesting unqualified contractors who end up abandoning the projects without fear of prosecution. Interesting, really. Well, joining us in the studio to discuss this is the Senior Technical Manager of TVC News, Obaniyi Akinwale, an engineer. Thank you for joining us on the show. Good morning to you.
Good to see you.
Now, how disheartening is it really to hear that unqualified contractors are the ones most usually that are got for projects in the country, especially for TCN projects?
Yeah, I won't say that it's unqualified and contractor that we handle projects to, but I would rather say we have unqualified regulators. Why I would say that is in Nigerian Constitution, the Constitution stipulates that the only point you are allowed to bring in expatriates into the country is when you discover that the system do not have qualified hands. But it's unfortunate that immigration law is not fully implemented.
Yeah, but these are not expatriates. These are Nigerian contractors.
That's what I'm saying.
Who were given in some cases up to 90% mobilization.
That's what I'm saying. That
do this job.
Is it Nigeria? That's what I'm saying. Is the regulators, not the Nigerians
who have failed.
Because in terms of competence, we have this competence in Nigeria. Nigerian engineers are up to task, and if you go outside the shore of this country, you discover that most people that are doing well in Silicon Valley, they are mostly Nigerians.
True.
They don't have two heads.
True.
If you go to medicine, you discover that Nigerians are doing extremely well. In agri, you have the likes of Adewumi.
But would you really blame the regulators? Because the TCN boss said that politicians meddled in the process of,
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. For example, let's look at the contract that was recently annulled between TCN and Aleri and Phase 3 Telecoms. I say regulation because in case of Aleri, Phase 3 Telecoms and TCN, the contract was signed in March 2006, supposed to span for a period of 15 years. And in the contract, the TCN is expected to hand over their fiber infrastructure to Aleri and Phase 3 to manage. Aleri, owned by Dangote Group, was supposed to manage the eastern network, while the Phase 3 is supposed to manage the western network. Now, over the period of 15 years, that was the contract span, they expected to pay about 80% or thereabout in 18 months. Now, what has the regulator been looking since the inception, since 2006, up to 2018, that we now have to say we want to truncate such a project? It means the project has spanned a period of 13 years. Is it Nigerian contractors or Nigerian regulators?
Even longer than that, in some cases as far back as 2001.
So that's what I'm saying. Then if in terms of competence, do we have the competence? Let's take Aleri, for example. The current, the then managing director of NEPA, in person of engineer Makoju, serves currently as the director on Dangote Groups. So in terms of competence, you have the competence. Who are the people running the pioneers for Phase 3 Telecoms? It happens to be in-law to the former communication minister, Colonel Adebayo. So in terms of competence, we have this competence. So over the period of 13 years, what is the system looking into? Why are we not having this fiber expansion? Do we have this facility? Yes. Do we have capacity to manage them? Yes. Do we have resources? That one is questionable. But do we have regulators that will implement that processes are managed day to day? We don't.
So in the end, you're saying that the bulk of the problem or the blame should be in the doorstep of the government.
It lies with regulatory agencies.
Which should be the government.
Which is government. Okay. So if you look at, for example, now, one of the things that was exhumed during this 40 million contract between TCN and Aleri and Dangote Group was Engineer Makoju signed on behalf of federal government that they are handing over a project to Aleri Group. About a year after that, he resigned from federal government as the MD of NEPA, and he became an executive director in Dangote. That's a conflict. Then, Cornelius Adebayo was our Minister for Communication in 2005. The Phase 3 Telecoms MD happened to be his in-law.
Wow.
Now, let's leave all that. The current ICRC boss was a former employee of Dangote Group. So you begin to ask yourself, is this politician or regulatory process? If we have a process, it doesn't matter who the actor is. If you have a law in place, you have the processes in place, you have how to implement it in place, then you follow those procedures. What are the things we'll be having with TCN? They are supposed to design, develop, finance, and build.
And then this buttresses the point of the TCN boss, Mohammed, that politicians are the ones causing problems by... Exactly. And then he even said that many in government see the TCN as their farmlands, just go there to make money. Free money.
It's a Nigerian mentality that anything that is like, out of all the power chain, you have the generation co-owned by the federal government and investors. You have distribution solely to the investors. But TCN is 100% Nigeria. And
remains the weakest link.
And it's the weakest link because one of the things our Larry Communication mentioned is that you gave us this facility to build, to develop, to manage for you. But there is no link between Makurdi and Jos, which is the handshake between the North and the South. So there are things that, there are other things, okay, as much as we want to say, we want to blame the politicians, what about the bureaucrats? Are bureaucrats also politicians?
So it's a mix of nepotism, corruption, ineptitude,
the keyword
lack of capacity.
The keyword, it's not lack of capacity.
The keyword is corruption.
It's corruption.
Okay.
Either as bureaucrat or as politicians, because, yeah, you are right to say sometimes bureaucrats want to do X, Y, Z, and you find out that the politicians can go to where the power lies and change things. But the question we need to ask is that, at what point do we have technocrat or broker like likes of Dora Akuyele that will stand for something?
Yeah. So
if the politicians are doing what they are doing, the likes of Dora Akuyele will stand around that I have my name to protect. And that's why you see what happens between Meina, Oyo, and Abakari.
So what are we supposed to make of this revelation from the acting MD of TCN? What should we do with it? I mean, the question, what has happened to these unqualified contractors, according to him? What happened to them?
One thing about Nigerian system is that we keep revealing from Farouk Gate to Stella Adua Gate, to Kari Gate, to Mena Gate, and gates keep revealing. And what we keep asking ourselves is, according to one of people I like reading the editorial, he said, anytime Nigerians set up committee to review or you have a report, that thing has already failed.
Absolutely.
But the only thing that you don't want it to fail is what you act upon.
And didn't somebody say that, look, if you want a job to fail or not to be done, give it to a committee?
If you want the job to fail, give it to a committee. If you don't want the job to fail, give people that will implement. Because there are two different things. A committee will review, will recommend. But people that will implement will go to the field and get the job done. And that was why you find out that what we are having in power sector is not faced in the telecom sector. It was a holy submission of take this thing over to the private sector, the entire team manages it, take it yourself, do it yourself, and everything. But in TCN, see, power in this, for example, in Germany, they are begging people to use power.
Yes.
You must consume because
people to
use it. So in Nigeria, we are even begging, we are paying, but we are not getting the power.
It's not unfair to compare our situation with that.
Why is it not fair?
Germany is a totally different.
Why is it not fair?
Can we try to compare with some African countries?
Okay, for example,
South Africa?
we will be shocked that you will be shocked that Nigerian is giving power supply to neighboring countries like Niger. And US, those areas we can't afford to have a second failure.
True.
So what exactly is it?
That is a regulatory process because we seems not to value our system. We seems not to value our citizens, because if there's a 1 second blink in Niger Republic, somebody is owed responsible.
Indeed.
And in Nigeria case, for example, this environment, I remember about 2 or 3 days ago, for 12 hours there was no light, no apology, nothing. And in the regulatory process, it says you must have light for at least 16 hours.
In fact, on the front page of a newspaper today, Minister Fawatuli Fashila Vanguard is giving reasons why power outage is
why can't he give us reasons
why power outage persists? We've not even bothered to read that to
now,
exactly find out what it means.
Yes, about 738 or 35 million naira was spent by TCN to clear abandoned goods at the port. Was December last year, and Mohammed had to go before the Senate committee to clarify why that was done. done. And then the reason was that contractors abandoned the goods. They couldn't clear because they didn't get a duty waiver on one side. And then you wonder, TCN is owned by the government, and yet it's the government that is setting policy of huge duty to be paid for imports on something you know that is useful for your own chain.
That's why I'm saying that it is not the politicians' regulatory process. If you look at the recent petroleum subsidy stuff, the NNPC, GMD, and the Minister of State for Petroleum was saying that even at ports, Nigerian-owned National Oil Corporation pay Nigeria agency, NPA, in foreign currency. So you could, is that politician? It is the system, it is the regulatory framework, it is a process. So it is not about who is doing what or why what is not done. But if we have a process in place, proper processes, you can't imagine NNPC want to bring in petrol, has to pay from ad-end forex to pay NPA, another government agency. Now, what you find is that NNPC is spending this much in forex, and NPA will come and tell us again that they are breaking this much in terms of revenue. So it is not about the politician, it's about the process.
So you're robbing yourself.
The system that is working against
itself.
It's queued actually to fail. Yes. Now let's look at this multilateral donor funding that we've been hearing about. Is the cheapest. It's been made available to the TCN, about $1.5 billion dollars or so. Was that money even released at all? And with all of this ineffectiveness in the TCN especially,
if you look at Fashola's report for the year, he said they are unable to do any capital project in the Ministry of Power and Works. Why? Because we have a system that says outside the National Assembly, the judiciary that has first line charges, every other person goes to the central post, and the Minister of Finance goes to the CBN and say, how much do we have? What is my priority? I go this way. So if there are donor funds coming to the system, it is not coming directly to the Ministry of Power and Works. It has to go to a common post. And when it gets to a common post, for example, what is the priority? We go this way. So these are the issues. And like I said, until the system changes, you could look at what Ministry of Work is trying to do now when they are going for Sukuk bond and all those things. They are immediately pumping those resources to those areas because these are the frameworks. But if these monies are coming in, what is our regulatory process? What is the modus operandi for doing this project? Even when you are saying you are bringing that we don't have competence in the system, who are the people you see on site? Are they not Nigerian engineers?
Indeed,
so we have the competence, we have the capacity, but the problem we have is our regulatory process are terrible. Until we desist from what the military gave us and said, we the people of Nigeria, we the people of Nigeria have to sit down and look at what will work for us. What will work in Washington, what will work in Abuja.
All right, you've gone to that particular thorny issue of restructuring. Is that what it is?
It's English semantics. Either restructuring, that devolution of power,
potato,
we have to sit together and say, this is how we need to do things.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, Engineer Obaniyi Akinwale, thank you so much for your insights.